Welcome to the Roy Morgan Weekly Update. This week we look forward to the Jobs and Skills Summit organised by the new Albanese government and set to kick off on Thursday, September 1, just over a week from today. But first, let's have a look at the key weekly indicators. So there's been little movement on the headline two-party preferred voting intention. That's despite all of the intense focus on former Prime Minister Scott Morrison's actions while he was in office. We see here the ALP support is unchanged on a two-party preferred basis at 53%, clearly ahead of the coalition on 47%. Other metrics are also quite positive. The Roy Morgan Government Confidence Rating, that's whether people think the country's going in the right direction or the wrong direction, has increased slightly, up 1 point to 106. 42% of Australians say the country's going in the right direction, compared to only 36% who say the country's going in the wrong direction, a gap of 6 points in a positive direction. And consumer confidence has also improved and is up 1.4 points to 85.6, now at its highest since early June, over 2 months ago. But remember, this measure is still well below that neutral level of 100, so that means more people are pessimistic than optimistic. And how do we as Australians feel about inflation? Well, every week Roy Morgan asks Australians what they expect inflation will be annually over the next 2 years. And the latest data shows Australians expect inflation of 5.5% annually, down 0.3 points on the last week. Now, inflation expectations, or what Australians expect inflation to be, have been stable over the last 2 to 3 months in a range from 5.5 to 6% since late May, so this trend continues for another week. Whether you're someone who's looking for a job or someone looking for employees, you'll be watching next week's Jobs and Skills Summit with a keen interest. The Jobs and Skills Summit will be hosted by the newly elected Labor government and led by the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, Treasurer Jim Chalmers, and Finance and Women's Minister Katie Gallagher. The Jobs and Skills Summit will bring together politicians, unions and business leaders from across Parliament, all parts of the country and around the community. A notable exception will be Liberal leader Peter Dutton, who won't attend, even though Nationals leader David Littleproud will be there to represent the coalition. Now, one of the key factors driving the Jobs and Skills Summit is the call by many business leaders to immediately increase immigration to address apparent skills and labour shortages. And with the ABS saying fewer than 500,000 people are unemployed, that's not surprising. You'll be unsurprised to know that we're going to look closely at these numbers, but even before we look at those numbers, there are questions around this. Why are there shortages? Are these shortages long-term or are they short-term? Are they caused by COVID infections that force people to stay home? Or is it the stimulus that drives increased demand for products and services and employment? Are there people who could, with retraining, join the labour force? Really important questions. But now let's come right back to the numbers, because the labour market is not that simple. So, the latest Roy Morgan unemployment figures for July show there are 1.25 million Australians out of work and looking for a job, and another 1.27 million Australians who want to work more hours. So that's a total of 2.5 million Australians who want to work more or find a job. They're available. That's over 1 in 6 Australians in the workforce. And remember, the ABS unemployment figures said there were less than 500,000, 474,000. That's a difference of over 770,000 people. So why is there such a difference? Well, the key reason is very simply the way that being unemployed is defined. We at Roy Morgan ask people if they're in paid employment, and a person who's not in paid employment is then asked if they're looking for paid work. If they say yes, Roy Morgan considers that person to be unemployed. They aren't currently working, but they do want a job and they do want to work. So we say that's the definition of unemployed. The ABS classifies a person as unemployed only if, when they're surveyed, they've been actively looking for work for 4 weeks up to the end of the reference week. That's the week before the survey. And if they were available for work in that reference week. So simply that means anyone out of work for less than 4 weeks, say 3 weeks, is never counted. And people who were doing something else in the previous week never get counted as unemployed. And the ABS classifies a person as being employed if, when surveyed, they worked for even 1 hour or more during the reference week for pay, for profit, for commission, or payment of any kind. Or even if a person worked for 1 hour or more without pay in a family business or on a farm, that person would be considered employed. So these sorts of restrictions on what it takes to be counted as unemployed by the ABS monthly figures cut down greatly the number of people the ABS considers unemployed and boosts the number of people considered to be employed. It explains the difference between the Roy Morgan and ABS unemployment figures. But there's more. The monthly results of Roy Morgan and the ABS are not even the full story of Australia's labour markets. The ABS also publishes an annual survey on what they call potential workers, which much more accurately captures the true level of unemployment in Australia. So in late May 2022, the ABS released the latest version of this survey. Conveniently, it was the week after the federal election, so it was largely ignored. But the potential workers survey showed that there were 1.8 million potential workers in Australia and another 920,000 underemployed workers. Over 2.7 million Australians either wanting to work or wanting to work more hours. Sound familiar? So all these figures are clearly laid out within the release, and in the chart you can see the potential workers who want to work but who are not considered as part of the labour force in dark blue. These are those that are hidden in those monthly numbers. The parts in light blue comprise the ABS monthly unemployed. The remarkable aspect of all of this is that the figures are so similar when the ABS potential workers data is used and the Roy Morgan unemployment data is used. So this is really remarkable. It's incredibly important. There are large numbers of people who are unemployed and underemployed, whichever figures you use. Now, what does that mean? Well, without commenting on whether or not we should have more immigration, these extra potential workers should not be forgotten in the deliberations at the summit. What do they need to match them with the jobs that we're worried we can't fill? Is it retraining? Is it relocation? Is it community support? These are some really important questions for the Job Summit. So subscribe to our Roy Morgan YouTube channel for all the latest political, economic and market research data and insights. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to joining you next week when we'll again have the latest data on consumer confidence, inflation expectations and voting intention. Take care. See you next week.